Well, I can't believe something as simple as this I managed to record with no sound. So I wanted to look through the R.A. Penfold book. Of course, I wrongly said in the previous video it was F.G. Rare, but of course it was Robert Penfold. And at the end of this sequence, we're going to show you some music ones, which are these, which Mr. Chippie's asked me to show you. He does guitar amp repairs, and some of the things in these books are relative to people interested in that kind of thing. But we're concentrating on the CB projects from 1981. We're also working on a PNI, is it a 6040, the small little micro set, which was kindly sent to us by our mystery benefactor Alan. In fact, he sent some more stuff today. It's one of those type of sets. It's not particularly that CRT one I just showed you there. So we've just had this come through the post from our mystery benefactor Alan. I'm not going to open it at this moment. Mr. Chippie does the opening of parcels, but as I've had to overdub this, Mr. Chippie has now indeed opened it, and I guessed, I was trying to feel it. You know, when you're a kid and you're feeling those prezzies. Well, no, it isn't an Action Man. It is, as I guessed, a power supply and a CB radio. So we'll be showing those subsequently. I think it's the 5 amp version of those banned Taiwanese ones for rebuild, and also a Midland 77099 chassis. So we'll open this up, a 1981 set. We'll open this up, it's 1981 book. There's the ISBN number. It's got speech processor. Oh, I didn't stop on that page. Perhaps we're going to. It does mention to overseas readers that some of these are only relevant to the UK, with us being on an FM system. Just zoom in a bit because I can. Simple as that. Speech processor. Well, of course, all the FM radios we use in the UK are speech processed, but some could benefit from improved audio, and this is a speech processor. And if any of you have ever bumped into the Turner Expander 500 bass mic, which sells for a lot of money, basically, I think it's a 5 transistor speech processor, and here's a 4 transistor speech processor, and it's something so relevant and something so easy to build today. It uses a couple of BC109C transistors. For those of you not familiar, the C is the gain, so the lowest gain one is BC109A, then 109B and 109C, so it's the highest gain ones available. They're available as plastic devices because they're metal TO18 case. As a plastic device, it's BC239 instead of BC109. But these kind of parts are readily available and cheap. The BFY51 in the middle there, we use them as switching transistors on pipe organ electric actions to drive solenoids, all readily available. So it's nice when you've got a book that's 40 years old which uses readily available parts, because as we go through this book, most of the projects that use RF energy rely on the Denko coils, which are a pain. They're making that on Vera board, as we would call it here, strip board. And this is something we could probably put together. So I think that could be a fun project to do. I think it's the Uniden sets that could do with a bit of a boost. Oh, aerial boost. There's the word twice. So this is in days gone by, this would be known as a pre-selector. So it's tuning onto the frequency you want, roughly the band you want, and so you're getting pre-amplification, but it's also only on the frequency that you want. It's not a general preamplifier. So it's not bringing out all the rubbish as well. The trouble is it uses one of these Denko coils, which were very popular in the press, magazines like Practical Wireless and so on, by these kind of authors. But because the firm, which was at Clacton-on-Sea, disappeared in the 1990s, these coils, they're hard to find. You can pick them up on eBay, expect to pay £15, and it uses the Blue Range 5, I seem to recall. That's the only stumbling block on that project. Now this is a receiver circuit, isn't it? And again, it's this using the Denko coils as well. Oh no, we're on the filter. I think this problem's gone because it was more with the analog television sets and TVI. UK radios have got filtering built in, so there shouldn't be a problem. And the tellies of the pre-CB era aren't likely to be around, are they? I don't think people are running pre-1980 television sets, which are going to be really susceptible to TVI. Field strength meter. Useful to set up telescopic aerial loading coils on hand portable radios. But, and I'm just mentioning here, I actually dug out the Gieson antenna matcher so we could finish off that Midland 4001 the other day, because I wanted to set this so the radio put up the antenna warning indicator when it got to a 3.5 to 1 SWR. So that's into the red patch, and that is exactly how it was set up. So we, instead of being on the dummy load, it was on the dummy load, and then you set the matcher so it's a mismatch to 3.5, then adjust the antenna warning indicator till it comes on. So that chip is a CA3140, and that's a TO99 package. So it's like a TO5 transistor. It's like that BFY51 earlier, but it's got all the legs of a transistor. So it's not dual in line like you'd expect. It's an earlier kind of thing, the CA3140E, readily available still, but it's unusual by today's standards. 12-volt power supply. So this is a CB power supply. It's 1 amp output. The trouble is that most sets, no, 50% of UK legal sets will draw 1.2 amps. So you do need to beef this up a bit. I'm just going to turn down that radio, which is on our repeater. I wasn't expecting that, but there you go. So back here, we've got a voltage regulator, and what they've done is centre leg, they've tied it down with 2 diodes, so it's above the earth potential, therefore giving it 13 volts instead of 12. I'd be tempted to put 3 diodes in to raise it to about 13.4 volts, because you need to be near that magic 13.8, don't you? Transformer specified is 2 amps, so that's fine. I would beef up those diodes to 2 amp rated diodes, or even 3 just to be on the safe side. So that we've turned the power supply into being able to generate at least 1.5 amps. The 7812 chip there, it's readily available as a Tonka version, which does 1.5 or even 2 amps. So instead of being 7812, it's 7812 something or other. There's a suffix, and it's easy to look that up in a data sheet to find a better version. And if you look on RS's catalogue or something online, you'll soon find that. So that's still relevant. We could build one of those and beef it up to 1.5 amps. Have I gone 2P? I have it. Yeah. There were commercially available power supplies simpler than this, in fact, and the FKI one comes to mind, which only did 1 amp. But I say you do need 1.5 amps, and the newer sets you can forget this because they draw 2.5 amps. You know, the ones which are post 2010 or 2005. You know, when they've gone on to being CPU controlled. So this is the receiver, and so it's a non-channelized receiver. So it's variable, like an old-fashioned radio. You turn a knob and it will tune that portion of the shortwave band, which Citizens Band is on. And it's going to tune between channels, so you can listen to all the illegal activity in between without having an illegal radio. And then you can see what the silly people who like to operate illegally are actually doing. Well, those who are transmitting on FM anyway. It's based around a TBA 120 chip, which is dead cheap. They're about 37 pence. Intended for use in television sets, and a LM380 audio amplifier. And this is the receive side of it. You've got 2 Denko coils and 2 IFTs, IF transformers, which again is a problem. The 40673 transistor there was always expensive, about £4.50 at the time, and the 2N3819 is readily available. 40673, you'd probably have to replace it with some equivalent by today. Because it would be difficult to track down, but it's a very good dual gate MOSFET. Metal oxide silicon field effect transistor. So we're going to discuss the Denko coils, I think, at this point, and that's putting it together on strip board. So you need the Denko range 5 coils, and you need IFT 13 and IFT 14. And again, they do pop up from eBay, but people want telephone number prices for them. And remember, this is a single conversion receiver. It's not going to blow your mind, but it is constantly variable, and it's an interesting project, and you can say you built it yourself. This is where I'm going to discuss the coils. So here's a selection of Denko coils, which I have here. And you'll see they're different colours. So in this project, it's the blue coils. The same goes for that RF preamplifier. It's the blue coils, because if you're building a super het receiver, if you've got different IFs, then the different coils are available. He's got the white ones, and you can see the green ones are for the regenerative receivers. So you see all these different colours. Now I've got some new old stock ones here, and they came in these aluminium 35mm film cans. There's the time, isn't it, when they came in a metal can. I mean, even when I was a kid, and I'm 61 now, they were in plastic cans for 35mm films. But I can remember when, I was very, very small, and my dad was taking a film out of a metal can. And they're used as the screening can when you need a screening can. I don't think in these projects you need a screening can. So the difficulty is there's an octal base one from the Valve days, but the B9A, aren't they, those bases? Now the first data sheet that's come out with that new old stock one is all Valve. I'm just looking in that one. Is there a data sheet? And I think it's DB4 is the best data book that Denko produced, and it will be available for download. Won't take much searching. Again, it's Valve circuits. So that isn't really the one I was wanting. I was wanting to know what the frequency response was, or the frequency range of the coils, which they've specified, which is they're in these different ranges, and say these are range 5 that you need. Range 1 is long wave, so as you go up the numbers, you're going higher in frequency. I mean, there were VHF ones as well. So I'm trying to compare, which version it is. That says it's a 4 on the box. Well, that's clearly not a 4. That's a bigger one, so that's probably going to be a 2. That looks like it's long wave. It's got that much meat on it. So the skinnier they are, the higher the short wave. So we're looking for something pretty skinny for range 5. I think that says it's range 2, somebody's written on it. So we'll just have a look at some other new old stock ones. So that's range 6. That's supposed to be range 4, but is it? I think that's the range 5 we're looking for, to be honest. You need 2 of them, and so it would be an expensive build. So there's a transistor data sheet, and on this one it tells us what the frequencies are for the different bands. I say range 1 is long wave. The monitor I'm reading this off is relatively small, so I'm not sure I can read any of these, but the range 5 is 10.5 megs to, I think it's 10.5 to 30 it covers, and that's why it's been selected. And these were pre-aligned, which is also a help when you're building something which and you don't have a signal generator to align it. They look like they're the same range, but they probably evolved over the years. I mean, they were producing these things from the 1950s up to the 1990s. So those IFT 13, IFT 14, they're intermittent frequency transformers, just like you get in CB radios. They look like that, those cans. They're a bit bigger, and they're usually copper. So trawling back through the book. So there's a power supply to run this project. It's 100 milliamps. Simple as that. Quite buildable today, no problem with component values. And then he goes through the frequencies both on 27 and 934 megs. You've got the pinouts for the various chips and transistors he uses in those projects. So it is an interesting book, and some of it's relevant even today, and some of it's buildable. Well, it's all buildable, isn't it? But trying to track down those Tango coils wouldn't be easy. So we're looking at some of these books Mr. Chippie's passed on to me by Mr. Penfold. So it's on effects units to build for your guitar. When we build these type of things, we tend to scan or photocopy books like this, and then you can have the sheets flat in front of you and you can write on them and make notes, whereas you don't have to be spoiling a nice book, especially something which can be difficult to get and it can be expensive to buy, so you don't have to be spoiling them. So this project uses an LF351 IC, which is an op-amp which is readily available. Split phase tremolo. So I'm just really going through this because Mr. Chippie thought some viewers may be interested in this kind of thing, and they may not be aware that this book is available. A vibrato unit. Is that a ring modulator to make you sound like a Dalek? Percussion synthesis. You see, I like all these analog things. No digital artifacts. Even listening to interviews on Radio 4, I can tell how many of these are done at a really low bit rate. I think they're a really low bit rate. In days gone by, you just wouldn't have had some of the quality of sound that I hear on the radio today. By this, I'm talking broadcast radio from the BBC. So we'll look at the bigger book. Better bring the camera out a bit. This is a book that, if you're a beginner, you could cope quite well with because it explains electronic components. So we'll start off by identifying different types of devices like transistors and chips, going through the resistor color code and what potentiometers look like. Strip board, what we call Vera board, because Vera Electronics produce it in this country. Guitar preamplifier, so presumably that makes it louder. Is that for a different type of amplifier than the proper guitar amplifier? I'm not sure. Headphone amplifier using a 1/4 watt audio IC. compressor, auto wah, a wah wah pedal, dual tracking effects unit, expander, treble booster, a direct injection box. Now I think this is where you have an amplifier that's got a recording mixer where you've got XLR inputs and you've got to go from unbalanced to a balanced input. That's what I seem to recall that's about. It's a long time since I was at college. Distortion unit, guitar tuner, which is alright if you've got 6 notes like you have on a guitar, not alright if you're trying to tune a huge pipe organ like we use the Korg chromatic tuner there. We have a bigger one for real use. Then you've got a glossary of terms in the back, and of course a few advertisements for more books. So Mr. Chippie thought you'd like to see those too, so we'll just run through those quickly. And there you are with the Penfold CB projects, which you will find a copy of that for probably around a tenner on eBay. So I think we've got an on the air test tonight. We're going to be looking at the Midland 42 hand portable, which we serviced the other day, and we're just going to do the usual on the air test. And there you have it. So thanks for watching. Hope you found that interesting. Catch you on the next video.